Good evening, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is David Okun. Thank you so much, everyone who have been helping to subscribe to my channel to support this project. Thank you so much for your journeying with me over, over the months now coming to over a year. This channel has been functioning very well. Work in progress. Thank you so much for your support, for subscribing and for sharing with family and friends, and sharing your views with me, leaving comments, clicking notification bell, clicking like, and doing much more, encouraging words and positivities. We have been dealing with a very difficult subject surrounding how people live in the world, and about politics, about policies, about globalization, complicated topics. What a privilege for me to be part of this economy, and also looking at society at large, examining our world, the environment, and also the way we live, our culture, and technology, the progressives. We have seen it all, and we are so happy moving forward, and we are moving forward. Once more, I'm so pleased that you came to help, watching, encouraging, sharing with family and friends, and clicking notification bell, subscribing to this channel. And if you're new, of course, you will consider subscribing if you like the video. I say to people, if you don't like it also, you can still subscribe, because there are always people who would be interested other than you. If you are not interested, if you don't like it so much, there are other people who might like it. Do a bit of charity for the world, for the people. Be human. It is only maybe aliens who do not help fellow humans, because I believe there are people around who will like this video. And thank you so much, and continue watching. And as always, today also I will be continuing to speak about financial support in the United Kingdom, and financial support, the primary financial support for those who are low income, and for those who are working on low income also from work. And if you are on minimum wage, you probably won't get universal credit because of government policy. The government would consider you to be getting sufficient amount of money, and although like many people, perhaps I disagree with the government, I have always said in the series of these videos that it is the function of the government to get the British people out of poverty. And also the purpose of the government of the world to get their citizens out of poverty. And it is only fair, it is only necessary, it is commonsensical. There is enough wealth, there is so much wealth in the world. And it is a shame on humanity, whether you are rich or poor, whether you are in government or out of government, that we still have so many people living in poverty. And also, as I believe it would be really of essence that the experts who support governments with advice, with consultancy on policy, to actually re-examine their definition of policy or poverty in a country like the United Kingdom, because it is my thinking that poverty is to be indicated by whether you work for a living or not, and whether you are able to buy your property outright, in which case you pull money from your pocket or from the bank or from wherever and pay outright. You don't borrow to buy your property in the United Kingdom or anywhere in the world. In my opinion, if you're in a situation where you have to actually struggle, you have to borrow money or even beg money from somebody with money. If you beg money from somebody with money, most likely you don't get. We live in a world where giving is becoming less and less from individuals. We live in a world where giving is also less and less from the government. So now if you rely on begging money from people to buy a house, and you will probably be laughed at even by a multimillionaire or a multi-billionaire. It doesn't work in practice. But if you are in a situation like that, then you can consider yourself poor. And it is my invitation to experts, especially experts, because the government listen to experts, to, if they are so lucky, and we are also so lucky for them to listen to come across this video, then they should be human enough to consider changing the way they define poverty in the United Kingdom, and also the way they define poverty around the globe. And because it is upon them and the governments of the world to consider carefully that it is not really right that the people of the world still live in poverty in a world where there is so much wealth. It doesn't make sense at all. And if you're a rich person, you are watching this video, or you actually happen to hear about this video from a good Samaritan who shared with so many people, that so many people actually watch the video, so that the information actually is spread to reach experts, to reach members of parliament, to reach the members of the media, to reach actually leaders who are actually with power, who have voices to speak in this country. If this information reaches them, then it is a simple logic in our modern world to really consider, to examine our moral our rectitude or lack thereof, as to why and as to whether or not it is really right for individuals in any one person being poor, in my opinion, in any part of the world, and also in the United Kingdom, is not really one poor person too many. And I know we as humans, we have our own pride, and we do not want to be associated with poverty. We don't want people to call us poor, or alternatively, we would rather prefer people to call us rich, even if we are not rich. And although I have to say that, you know, a lot of wealthy people may not be able, may not be interested to being referred to as rich, because it is a security risk. A lot of people will pay unwanted attention to rich people, and it's a security risk in such a way that so much so that, you know, a lot of rich people are actually in hiding, so to speak, you know, in Africa, in other parts of the world. They live behind bars, behind concrete walls, and their monies are actually protected. They keep their money in prison, in banks, which is really what is necessary. The multimillionaires and multi-billionaires drive in armored vehicles, in armored airplanes, trains. They are protected by, you know, close protection officers, security personnel who may also be licensed to shoot, to carry guns, to shoot may not be not be to kill. They are not James Bonds of this world. Maybe they are not really licenses to kill, but they might be licenses to shoot, maybe to incapacitate, such as a common standard in the United Kingdom. But around the world, there are a lot of guns, some of them being carried illegally, and especially illegally carried guns are the most dangerous in the hands of lunatics, people who have nothing to lose, who are actually roaming the street, like nightmares you see in America, Jamaica, South Africa, in parts of the world. No need to mention specific countries. We are actually countries and communities of criminals. One dangerous criminal is one dangerous criminal too many in a community. If we are actually to think of peace, let us come slightly back on to talking about financial support in the United Kingdom. What triggered my discussing financial support in the United Kingdom has been talking about the cost of living crisis, which I am still talking about, but actually trying to look at different dimensions which actually link to the cost of living crisis. I have said, discussing the cost of living crisis, that it is actually essentially an income related problem. A lot of people may not realize it because people probably sometimes really don't take time to think. And I am inviting everyone in this video to really think a little more, because it helps to help you. It actually support you are actually striving to solve your own problems. And I say, in a modern world where government is now trying to release us from the grip of the state, we who actually are yearning for freedom should actually earn it by learning. We earn freedom by learning the essence of what problem or what solutions might be available, including the cost of living crisis. It's an opportunity. I have said this before. If you watch this video, watch it with the rest of the videos. I'm doing voice recording and actually linking these to templates I've prepared earlier. And leave a comment below if you like this approach, and subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Support this, share with family and friends, and click the notification bell, click like, and put a big smile on your face. We talk about a subject which is actually depressing, but you can still smile, you can still relax, you can still feel good about yourself. And poverty is not an offense, it's not your fault. If you are actually living in poverty, whether you know it, whether you accept it or not, if you feel pressure resulting from the cost of living crisis, the kind of pressure which actually worries you significantly, because it may prevent you from accessing basic necessity in your life. If that happens, then most likely you are worried, and a lot of people are now becoming isolated, they are lonely, they are stressed by nature of our society. Our society is very isolating, but that is part of our culture, which I've also been talking about as part of this process. And all these things are connected. That's why I tend to talk about them. This is an opportunity for me to actually examine these situations. And I'm so happy you are actually listening to this and carry on watching. I'm so grateful. And leave a comment below and let me know what you think, so that we have a conversation. When I was talking about universal credit, I am still asked, it's money. It's money. If you watch this video and watch it with the rest of the video, is money given to people who need help, financial help in the United Kingdom. Is related to income, and the cost of living crisis is income related problem, because people are on low income suffer the crisis more than people who are actually millionaires and multi-millionaires or multi-billionaires. And a lot of the time, if you are being paid well, maybe you are getting £50,000 per annum, you still experience the cost of living crisis. But if you live in the UK, you will realize that average people are paid between £20,000 and £30,000 per annum. And almost certainly these people will face the impact, the adverse impact of the cost of living crisis. And the minimum wage, the national minimum wage, and the national minimum living and minimum and living wages. These are actually classification by the government. This is part of employment law on pay. And I've always said it doesn't matter how you classify, how you call them, whether they are national minimum or living wage. I think that is irrelevant. I think those are semantic, those are political gimmickry. I would say to the government, the UK government, categorically, I've said this consistently. I'm not an expert, but I'm an expert on people who need help. People who could. I am a self-made expert on poverty because I live with poor people. I am a poor person myself, and as soon as I become rich, I will let you know. But for now, I'm a poor person because I know my life. If you earn anything below 50,000, you are you should be on the lower scale of existence. But the reason the government give about £10 in minimum or living wage thereabouts is because he thinks if you get more, you become maybe, I don't know what he thinks, because probably he thinks you get out of poverty. This can get you out of poverty because any sensible government, including the UK government, but also any government around the world, should have the decency, at least the decency, but also the common sense to get the British people and the people of any country out of poverty. That is necessary now. It is really, really necessary now that there is so much wealth, there is technology. Wealth should be created and wealth should be flowing like water in the world now, which means potentially most people should be rich. But I'm not talking about becoming rich. I'm talking about getting out of poverty. And it's not necessary at all, although the official statistics show that only maybe 10 or 20%. But I think if you cannot buy a house outright, then you're already poor. And leave a comment below if you think borrowing to buy something necessary. It's necessary, it's housing. Also, if you need to rent, because one of the things causing now a lot of problem, the most expensive source of livelihood actually renting. So housing is the most expensive by any stretch of the imagination. And food and energy may be expensive, but the cost of food and energy is going up, and also of water. And as this goes up, including transport and healthcare, and you see, provided the government, kind of like withdraws the public sector from the country, which is what is actually happening. The direction of travel is actually with shutting down the public sector entirely, including education. Education is being shut, and in the next 30 to 40 years, most aspects of education, actually, as we know it now, should be the preserve of people who are multimillionaires and multi-billionaires and their children. And these people are now being encouraged to do apprenticeship in the United Kingdom. Apprenticeship train you on specific skills. It is aimed at employment. And education should be actually integrated, providing integrated learning, including transferable skills. If you are, highly learned, well educated, you have gone to university. Even if you only do A level or O level, you will be intelligent enough to be dynamic enough to compete in the market. But things like apprenticeship only teach you a single skill. If you lose job in that field, you have to go to and do another training. You don't have all years. You only live once. You're growing old. And I am always saying, if you have money, if you have the capacity, it doesn't matter how little it is. Do your best to educate your children. It means to actually educate your children from home. Do it. Because if you rely on the government, you're going to be really disappointed. People are going to be really, really shocked what is going to happen in the coming, decades, and maybe whatever you call it, in the next 10, 50, 100 years, for those who are still alive, they will actually be in the greatest shock of their life, seeing the disappearance of the public sector, because the private sector cannot provide public service. That's the bottom line. If the government privatizes the economy, it doesn't privatize it to promote public service. People need to get this into their head. When was the last time you went to the supermarket and you told the cashier or even the manager that you don't have money, you need some food? They're not going to give you, they will throw the food away to rot other than give you food. That is the behavior, the attitude, the mentality of the market. They don't give anything for free because they don't like doing that. They throw the food away. In the day, anybody, even people on the street, people who are going hungry on the street, even the government, even food bank in the UK, they don't get food from the supermarket. The supermarket throwing food away. They should have at least give it to some community group or churches, some community group organizations to help people who need food. I am not talk about energy because energy is actually being privatized. That's why there is a problem with the energy supply system. Privatization is not necessary for for goods and services which people actually rely on as of essence. The government needs to start thinking more clearly, and their advisors need to be thinking more clearly. Let us come back to look at this benefit, because you see, benefit, the only reason people actually go to claim benefit because they don't have money and they are actually at the bottom of society in terms of income, in terms of dignity. There is no dignity associated with benefit, and there is no dignity associated with employment, especially employment which pays £10 an hour, or employment which actually promote 0-hour contracts, or employment which actually do not give you even employee status. There is something they are being developed within the employment legal system, which actually classifies certain people as workers. They are not even employees, which means they are casual. They can be fired. They have limited employment rights. This discussion of employment law is a sign of the times that employment is closing down. Why? Because of technology. And technology is the more technology, especially artificial intelligence, and things like nanorobotics, and all these are linked. They are good things, but they are there being used by people who have money, who actually want to make more money. People who I can only describe as being greedy, and they may live in denial, or they may not understand the idea of being greedy, because you have more than enough. You have too much money, so much money that you don't even know how much money you have. You don't even know what to use the money for. You use the money for purposes of some distorted sense of security, or some sense of, like you're protecting something, like your self-esteem, you are protecting your money. You're making more money to protect more money. To protect your money, you're creating more wealth to protect the wealth you already have. I understand that, but you see, it has to stop somewhere. Somebody somewhere has to take responsibility. And my view was that this person taking responsibility should have been the government. And unfortunately, I don't really see that the government is really doing enough to control the behavior, the excessive behavior of multimillionaires and multibillionaires. I know the argument of economic growth or growing the economy, but you see, there is no need to create wealth if these wealth are concentrated in the hands of the few, and the 90% or 95% of people increasingly are actually being excluded. And this is a form of weaponizing of wealth. Whether we know it, whether we don't know it, It can be inadvertent. I suspect it is inadvertent. I don't believe multimillionaires and billionaires are intrinsically wicked. I don't think so. I think these people are actually have created a world of fantasy, of a world without a world within a world, and it may not be even their fault, because they are no longer actually aware how the rest of the people of the world lives. They have a very distorted information coming from society, because poor people are not going to go on the street to say, look at us, we are poor. They have dignity, they have respect, they need to respect themselves. They are not going to go onto the street. I mean, the British people are very proud of themselves, and if you even suggest that they are poor, they're going to be upset, and yet they are really suffering. And this is a cultural situation which actually demands education. I have been saying this, leave a comment below and let us have a conversation. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for engaging. And I was talking about universal credit, which is money, financial support given to people who need support in the United Kingdom. And I am actually making this, providing this information in addition to what I've already provided in the other videos. So probably, if you have time, you watch this. If you have an opportunity, you watch the rest of the video. But also, the best place, in my opinion, to go is actually gov.uk and read about universal credit. Be an expert on benefit. Because if you are working, if you have, just even 10-20 minutes, read at least once a day or something about benefit, including pension, including child benefit, child care, and all this information, because there are benefits scattered all over the place. There is one known as council tax reduction, and council tax reduction is a benefit you get when you are on low income to get you with council tax. Discuss council tax, which is actually legislative. I think it's a statutory product, and which is actually mandatory. And if you don't pay council tax for good reason, you might go to prison. And you may not necessarily, in practice, you might not yet go to prison, but who knows? I mean, society is changing, people are becoming more strict, and the system is becoming more effective in applying law and policy. And in that sense, a lot of people are going to be caught not paying council tax, and the method of prosecution or processing credit may or indebtedness may even actually be more efficient, given the rise of technology, artificial intelligence, for example, being used by tax collectors, being used by benefit providers to catch people who may not be complying with benefit rules, because if you don't comply with benefit rules, your benefit can be actually stopped or reduced. It's called benefit sanction. I have mentioned it briefly, and these information are repeatable because of the nature of the materials I work with, and they are repeatable, and it's not a bad thing that they are repeatable. And I'm talk about council tax, because if you are actually if you are claiming universal credit and you know somebody who claims who get, especially if you get the full amount of universal credit, that is an indication that you're on low income. And the best thing is to actually do a benefit check if you can get council tax reduction or council tax support, as they sometimes call it. And this information I have actually mentioned before. And the way to actually check benefit, sometimes you need to do a benefit calculation, which is done by the computer or the internet. There are websites I've mentioned, at least two websites which actually entitled to, or actually is one word, entitled to, or turn to us, turn to as in 1-2 number to us. The number turn and then the number 2, which is to us. 2 is not written as TO, but it is actually turn number two, us, turn to us, which this is actually a very popular website for benefit check. You can do a benefit calculation to see if you can get a council tax reduction. These are actually standing costs to households, and but the most expensive actually renting and also paying mortgages. Universal credit does not pay mortgages. If you are on a mortgage, you are in trouble with benefit. And speak to your member of parliament if you're in the United Kingdom, if you are on a mortgage, and ask them to lobby parliament so that parliament can get the government to change policy on mortgages so that benefit should pay for mortgages. See, it's actually common sense. Most of these things are commonsensical. And then the government is just too technocratic, is too depending on experts who are also too technocratic. I don't know where they get the ideas from, because benefit should get people out of poverty today, not tomorrow. And also employment. If you work for a living, you should not be in poverty in the UK. So the way to get people out of poverty is actually to increase the minimum wage, or the living wage, whatever you call it, increase it maybe by 50%, maybe from 10,000 to 20,000 pounds on the one hand. On the other end, the government need to actually increase funding for local groups who are actually advisors on debt and financial management. And this is a really important factors. If the government does that to actually change the way it works within the social sector, social policy sector, to support people on the matters of debt and on the matters of financial management on the one and on the other, actually reduce the actual level of benefit. Benefit should be equated with people who actually work to earn a minimum wage, a national living wage, which I think should be increased at the very minimum, £20, if not £30, will really get British people out of poverty. £30 per annum after tax, that will get British people out of poverty, everyone. And if you heard to that, to actually develop a website, a simplified website and training for every household, if you are getting benefit, you can make it mandatory for everyone to actually do a course online on debt management, financial. It will help them. But a lot of people are so sensible, they are going to accept support if they are on minimum wage, if they are on national living wage, especially if the government encourages them by increasing the level, and also encourages them to do government-sponsored websites to provide training online, which are free. People who are actually debt advisors, who are debt trainers, or are financial advisors, financial trainers, they can actually be funded by the government to train household free of charge, which is actually a condition. If you work for a living, you are actually being supported on the minimum wage, and you are being supported on benefit like universal credit. This will get British people out of poverty within a year. And these same models can be promoted in America, in Europe, in Africa, and Asia, to get the people of the world out of poverty. It may sound like Alice in Wonderland, but it is a commonsensical approach to peace, because you see, poverty is a form of violence, and we have more than our fair share of violence during conventional warfares still going on. You see in the Middle East, you see in Africa, you see in Asia, in Russia, and in Europe, in every part of the world, there is still conventional warfare. And sooner or later, individuals may start fighting, cyber warfares. They may start fighting, with biological warfare. They don't need to be governments. They can be terrorists. They can be individuals. Because the world is getting more and more violence. That is a separate matter of security and safety. But, money and wealth, poverty in particular, is becoming also a form of warfare. People in power are actually neglecting people who are out of power, and power is now being linked to wealth. And this is actually a toxic situation which has to be changed, has to be managed culturally. Culture means education, educating people to learn the value of humanity and also do planning around humanity. It is a commercial concept at the moment. It's a customer service concept, customer-centered service provision, good and services, which is customer-centered. That is what cultural learning, cultural economy means. It means we consider humanity not in terms of wealth, but in terms of health as well, in terms of opportunities, in terms of respect, in terms of happiness, in terms of our attitude, how we think. So going back to what I set out to speak about, I'm talking about the council tax reduction, which is actually a factor we can look, and if we discover that we are on universal credit, and we've discovered we are actually entitled, the best thing is to claim. So, other benefit to check if you're on universal credit is actually if you're caring for somebody else, if you're a carer, you might also be able to get other form of benefit in that way. And or if you have a long-term health condition, something called personal independence payment, or which is actually different from personal independence payment is different. But in terms of universal credit, there is what you call the sickness element of universal credit are something called limited capability for work-related activities. A mouthful, but as you visit government website, you will familiarize yourself with limited capability for work-related activity, which is actually a kind of like acronym for benefit, and also how the sickness benefit is treated within universal credit. Like I said, do a benefit calculation if needed. If you need benefit or somebody else need benefit, or even a neighbor can turn up to your door, and if you know they are sick, if you know they are suffering, begin begin a road back to humanity, because we have been living recently, until recently, as we are almost turning into animals, because animals are like living in the jungle, not caring for themselves very much. As long as they have eaten, they have drunk, as long as But we are humans. Believe me or not, we are not animals. We are more than animals, and we do things which animals can only imagine. I mean, if you meet a cow or a donkey or a horse, you look at a horse or a cat or even a dog who actually, cats and dogs live with humanity, with humans. They marvel at us. What are these people doing? They don't understand that we are so sophisticated that we are even doing research. We have open research institute, to learn about animals. That is our special humanities. Let us not lose sight of our values. We are humans. We are not really things. Let us go back to basics. The basic understanding of life. If Without being simplistic, let us simplify our lives and really be human again. If your neighbor is at a problem, if is experiencing a problem, take just 2-3 minutes to talk to them. They may be needing benefit. You go out of your way, do a research even for an hour and discuss it with them. Some individuals do not know how to use the internet, and they do not even have the means to access YouTube channel or social media. Some people don't understand social media at all. So we need actually to work with our local leaders to improve access to the internet, social media. I know there are a lot of people, especially politicians and people in the media, in the main media, trying to be, hostile to social media. Everything happening now is being blamed on social media. But I think that is not right, because, social media is supposed to be used to liberate, to put a liberty, to free people who do not access media. And people who are actually interested in peace should promote, support social media. If it is to be regulated, then the government need to finance it, because you can't set policies on anything unless you can finance it. Because the government now are busy setting laws which poor people cannot access because of legal aid. The government has stopped legal aid almost on every topic or on every subject, and it's getting worse and worse. Lawyers who are not multimillionaires and multibillionaires are now getting, losing their jobs. They cannot get work because the majority of the population are being excluded from access to law because of the shutting down of legal aid. As simple as that, because legal aid is supposed to be used by people who cannot afford the cost of law. You go and ask the cost of legal material, you won't be able to buy at all. When you want to read it, you won't get it. They are not in libraries. You don't get up to date law books in or journals. You don't get it. Only people with money, only the professional with money, even legal professionals who are actually barristers or solicitors in the United Kingdom, can no longer now practice because the government is no longer supporting them. So they either work with big law firms, which capacity is now being distorted, not least by technology, but also by elite lawyers who are actually super rich, are working with rich organizations. So, the story is also, happening in hospitals. There are doctors who probably get hundreds of thousands, and there are others who only get 20,000. They are both are medical doctors. And this is actually a problem of society. This is actually social policy failure in the United Kingdom, and this is across the globe. And if you're a medical doctor, if you're a lawyer, pay attention. These are actually uh, fields where there were job security, but it is changing. If you have to be a multimillionaire to be a doctor, to be a lawyer, to be an engineer, to be an accountant, these things are closing down because there are most of them being now replaced by machine. Things like lie detector, things like CCTV providing evidence, and solicitors used to be a process of the working with the police and the crime investigators. Mention the police are actually being shut down, are being replaced by machine. The military the same, and this is actually supposed to be a good thing. But people are losing their livelihood. The government have no solution to that. The government should actually pay attention to people who are losing job, people who might not even be able to access the benefit of technology. The government is still needed. Before it rushes to shut down across the globe, the government need to really pay attention to what people need in society. Talking about benefit as we are, um, continue watching, subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Thank you so much. And you use the website, like I said, entitled to and turn to us. These are the key ones, and you will need to be a British or Irish citizen to use the calculator. But it's not true because this information may not be exactly true. But you may not be a citizen, but if you have recourse to public fund, then you can actually use the calculator, because you may have there's something called indefinite leave to remain, and then you can use it because you will be entitled to benefit. And if you are you have a pre-settled status in from Europe, you may not be able to get benefit. But if you have a settled status from Europe, from the EU, from what is formerly a European Union, then you can actually use this and entitled to. Indirectly, it is right, but it's not entirely accurate because British. You may not be a British citizen or Irish citizen, but you may be an indefinite leave to remain. Is actually an immigration status situation which involve primarily to test whether you are British or Irish citizen, but also if you are resident who has recourse to public fund. If you go to the government website, you will find advertised help available for bills. Bills, as we know it, has to do with housing, council tax, like as we have just mentioned. We talk about bills to do with housing, to do with energy, water, and there are grants and benefits given by the government. The way I understand it, double check with the government website. But these are grants which are actually very, it's very common. It's very rare to get. In practice, it's very rare to get this help. They are advertised as grants. They are being given mainly for energy by energy company. They are given by also by people who are actually supplying water, like Thames Water in the United Kingdom or British Gas in the United Kingdom. And but these are actually very difficult because the process of accessing this help is linked to the way private companies work, requirement. I mean, working with government to make it really difficult for people to access these grants. To the effect that more or less, in practice, nobody actually get this help. And this is something you can go to your member of parliament and discuss it with your member of parliament or with your local councillor, the people you elect into politics in the United Kingdom. These are people who should advise policy and practices. And in practice now, these help are there, these bills are there, but they are not really useful. If I am to say, because they are there on paper, the process of getting it is so difficult, and people who should be actually getting help do not even know it is there because the energy company who supply energy into to households do not actually tell us. They don't tell us if you get advice to try and get this help, you are actually transferred from one debt advisor to another. You are actually being almost forced to put what do you call it? Your smart meter. Smart meter means, and there are conditions of getting this thing. If you're in debt, mainly you get it. So the gas companies are now trying to almost to force customers to actually install smart meters. Smart meters prevent anyone from getting into debt, but also if you put pay as you go, then the customers are not going to get into debt anyway because if you are not in debt, they say, I don't know if it is the rule can be challenged, but these are discretionary benefits, so they shouldn't even be mentioned as being available because if the government really wants to help people genuinely, these help should be as of rights. But most of this help, extra help, and except council tax reduction. But this council tax reduction is now turning into a discretionary benefit because they don't. The council no longer pay the full council tax in the majority of the cases. Then there is something called hardship payment, which is a grant. It is discretionary. If you learn about that grant, most people do not know the grant even exists. If you learn about that grant, then you go to the council and ask for it. They are not going to refuse. But if you speak to an advisor, they are going to advise you to actually do something called reconsideration. You ask for a reconsideration for the council to look at it again. It is bureaucracy to delay paying you any help. And if they pay, they sometimes pay for 3 months. So you have to go back again. On and on. And it's so tedious to get something so little because people are so poor. The money given is so little because council tax in the scheme of things it's expensive. It's about, on average, it's about £2,000 per annum. But for somebody who is actually on low income will benefit, I don't see why somebody on benefit should still not be paid the full council tax reduction. That is the current policy. The council is not paying the full council tax reduction. So they are not paying the full rent because of benefit cap. And they are also indirectly reducing benefit for housing, because something called non-dependent deduction, and also something called bedroom tax. These together will significantly reduce benefit for household. It is shocking. And if you lose your home, you're not going to get another one, because the definition of homelessness has changed. Because even if you are actually entitled to public housing, the council is no longer obligated to house you within they have the right, the power to send you to private rented property. Now, what is the logic of public housing? And if you are actually eligible, the eligibility criteria is also so strict. Almost 90% of who apply for benefit, who could get not benefit but housing. Housing is a form of benefit anyway. It's about a benefit which is non-financial, which non-monetary, because it is funded by the government. These actually, it is correct to say housing, public housing is no longer there, because if the government says it is there, but if you cannot get it, first of all, even if you are on a waiting list, you can wait for 20 years, and you are being put in a property, so mostly privately leased. This property actually leased from private companies, and they are in disrepair constantly. Some of them are actually risky, because nobody now is able to inspect this property. Gas boilers, asbestos, and the list is endless. And sometimes you get abrupt appointment. Somebody is trying to come to inspect your property on a Saturday, and you don't even know that you have to go to work. If you don't go to work, you're going to lose your job. You're not going to, some people are on 0-hour contract, and you get your landlord sending somebody at random that they're going to come. And sometimes you take time of work, they don't actually come, because the engineer is sick. You book an appointment for somebody to come, the engineer is sick, the gas inspector is sick, or the housing inspector. They come and inspect the property. They give recommendation that this repair need. They don't repair the property. You wait and wait and wait, and if they book an appointment with private companies who are subcontractors, they book these appointments, you will end up in a situation of trouble, being in trouble. And continue watching. I'm actually talking about Universal Credit 6. Thank you so much. Once more, I'm so pleased that you came to help, watching, encouraging, sharing with family and friends, and clicking notification bell, subscribing to this channel. And if you're new, of course, you will consider subscribing if you like the video. I say to people, if you don't like it also, you can still subscribe, because there are always people. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you for being with me. Overwhelmed by the process of video, trying to make so many changes the way I'm doing the template, but then learning part. And if you watch this video, you are probably will realize that